Coming up on Clearcut Plus, the partial government shutdown continues. President Trump responds to Speaker Pelosi's demand that he not deliver his State of the Union speech. And fake news, it's not just an American problem. In Israel, the fake news bots are also attempting to meddle in the upcoming elections. We'll tell you how Israel is dealing with this problem. And the latest viral challenge on Facebook is raising some questions about big data. Is there a secret agenda to the 10-year challenge, or is it just fun?
From the i24 news studio in Times Square in New York, this is Clearcut Plus with Michelle Makori.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for watching. It is day 27 of the government shutdown. President Trump spoke about the shutdown this morning. Now, he did not address Speaker Pelosi's suggestion that he delay the State of the Union address until this afternoon. Now, when he did, it was a game of tit for tat, if you will. But for families of the 800,000 unpaid workers, the impact doesn't feel like a game. Serena Marshall reports from Washington.
This bus loaded with members of Congress barely pulled out of the Capitol complex when
Congressman Takano, what's your thoughts on this?
Their trip to Afghanistan ended before it began. The president denied Speaker Pelosi and a congressional delegation use of a military plane for a trip to Europe and Afghanistan, a trip the president called a public relations event. Writing, "We will reschedule this 7-day excursion when the shutdown is over."
It's petty. It's small. It's vindictive. It is unbecoming a president of the United States.
Well, I think government is shut down right now. I think it was appropriate.
As the squabbling in D.C. escalates, the implications real for families across America.
I've pawned everything that I can imagine, and now I'm just at my wit's end.
Many embarrassed that they would need to, for the first time, depend on food stamps, food pantries, and handouts.
Some federal employees withdrawing money against their retirement accounts. So-called hardship withdrawals up 34% over the same time last year. But the shutdown unlikely to end. Even presidential ally Lindsey Graham called the Trump versus Pelosi spat inappropriate, tweeting, "One sophomoric response does not deserve another."
And that was Serena Marshall reporting there. Now, while there appears to be very little compromise in the air in Washington, it's good to be clear about what this dispute is actually about. Now, yes, it is about a wall or a barrier that President Trump promised his voters and that various Democrats have supported and voted for in the past. But let's talk about the money aspect here. The president has requested $5.7 billion. Now, that is $5.7 billion out of a $4.4 trillion budget. So in more understandable terms, if your household budget was $44,000 a year, we're talking about $57. $57. So ask yourselves, if you and your partner had a $57 dispute on something one of you wanted to buy, so for the safety of the family, would it be worth refusing and shutting down your house? Well, joining me to answer that and many other questions are Tom Borelli. He's a contributor to the Conservative Review and America's Voice, and Jeremy Ring, a former state senator in Florida and a Democratic strategist. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Jeremy, let's start with you and the latest developments and what seems to be a tit for tat in the government shutdown. The president canceled Nancy Pelosi's taxpayer-funded transport. Now, putting that action aside, what was Pelosi thinking going away in the first place now? I mean, isn't it rather tone deaf for Pelosi and Democrats to be leaving during this critical time? I mean, how can she negotiate about this shutdown and help those 800,000 federal workers when she's gallivanting abroad?
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone's a winner here. I mean, Donald Trump left during the shutdown. He went to Iraq, which, you know, I certainly wasn't opposed to. Nancy Pelosi is leaving. They can, you know, they should be back here, all of them working, but they can certainly work over the phone. And now what do we have? We have, you know, cancel wars or cancel gate and tit for tat. And, you know, it's all foolish. And you know, this is why we're just so fed up with the government. There is no winners here. It's just about their own principle, and everyone's losing sight of 800,000 people that aren't getting paid. And within a few weeks, we're going to see disruptions in food, disruptions in travel. Why aren't we focused on that? Why are we focused on who gets the win and who gets the loss?
Well, it does seem to be that is the focus for both Democrats and Republicans. You could argue, Tom, that the president acted in a petulant way today. Senator Lindsey Graham seems to think so. He said that this is a sophomoric tit for tat. The president said that one of the reasons he did that is because he wants to make sure that Pelosi's in town to negotiate.
Yeah, I think the big picture is President Trump is frustrated because of the Democrats who just refuse to negotiate. There's no negotiation here. Nancy Pelosi called the wall immoral. They said it's a manufactured crisis. The numbers speak differently. But I think President Trump is also frustrated with the travel. I mean, President Trump stayed in the White House over the Christmas and New Year's holiday. Nancy Pelosi was in Hawaii. A week ago, we had Democrats partying with lobbyists, getting tans in Puerto Rico. So, I think President Trump is tired. He wants them to come to the table. He even invited Democrats to come to the White House on Tuesday, and they didn't show. So we need to get the groups together. I think overall, maybe some moderates of both parties will get together, but there needs to be a compromise. President Trump was flexible in his primetime speech. He said, I'll back away from the wall. I want a steel barrier. And I'm sure he would back away from the 5.7. If we're negotiating a House or negotiating with my colleague, across the aisle here, we would say 5.7. He'd say 0. We'd come somewhere in the middle. We'd walk away and be happy.
A counteroffer.
Well,
Jeremy,
no, I mean, come on.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
President Trump was offered $20 billion a year ago. And he also
turned
it down.
DACA, too.
No, he was offered $20 billion for DACA. That was the deal. He rejected it.
Because of chain migration.
He's being petulant. He's being a bit of a baby. He did travel a little bit during Christmas. He went down to the border. I mean, it's all absurd on both sides. But when, I start hearing conservatives, just defending, it's all, pro-Trump, anti-Democrats, when in reality,
all right,
Jeremy, let's just reality. This is about the 800,000 people not getting paid.
Let's try focus on a solution here. What do you think the Democrats can put forward to give them enough of a face-saving position? Because, as you say, this has become a political game. So what can they come forward with in terms of a counteroffer that could end this impasse?
And I think the Democrats should offer something back for the wall in response, in return for, the 700,000 dreamers. Do some aspect of the deal that Trump rejected a year ago. They should be able to get that for the dreamers. They do have leverage right now, and I think that's probably the right offer. And I know there are bipartisan group of senators who are trying to put that forth, and that makes sense.
Tom, the president has canceled his trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos, so he's around to talk. But is this something that he would be willing to talk about, the DACA? Is this something that the president's base would accept, some kind of DACA deal?
Well, I think President Trump had already expressed the last time that he was willing to do that as part of the negotiation. I believe it fell apart because he also wanted to include chain migration as part of the big formula. But to my colleague on the other side, I think what he's recommending would be a good start. Get the moderates together. Let's get some talking about the wall, talk about border security, because after all, border security is about all Americans, about securing our border. It's a humanitarian thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the American people. And, there is a problem there, and caravans keep traveling. But I think that would be a way to do it. Get together, talk about, other issues. Can't be too big, because otherwise it'll fall apart. But it really shouldn't be all that complicated.
I think you're in agreement about that. Jeremy, quickly, final thoughts. Why don't the Democrats want to show up and talk?
Well, the Democrats showed up to talk, and Trump said bye-bye and walked out. So they've had a couple of meetings, and I think at the end of the day, and I do agree again with Mr. Borelli, I think it's going to have to be, moderates that kind of come together and bring the solution, and Leader McConnell's got to step up. I mean, we haven't talked enough about him.
Yeah.
He's got to step up.
All right, Jeremy, thank you so much. Jeremy Ring, Tom Borelli, appreciate it. Still ahead.
Thank you.
The problem with fake news, it's not just an American one. We'll tell you how Israel is tackling the issue.